all of the areas of gratitude in my life. And we say good morning to our Facebook family that's joining us live. Welcome to the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living. Today is Sunday, November the 29th. And we're concluding our November theme today, Living as Compassionate Conduits. And we focus the conclusion on the indwelling presence as a grateful and cheerful giver. Today we are a grateful and cheerful giver. You ever have one of those spirit downloads that gives you a message and you go, oh, what's the meaning of this? And mine come at various times. The most recent one that I want to share this morning, and some of them now seem to be coming when I'm in that waking up state. You know, you're not quite awake, but you're alert that something is about to shift in the day. So this was a spirit download for me. At the end of a flight, the flight attendant cautioned you as you're preparing to get your overhead luggage to be careful because something may have shifted in the overhead container while the plane was in flight. And so I received this message and I've been asking myself, what am I to do with this? You know, what insight, what are some shifts that I am to be aware of that are occurring in my life? And my recent move came to me as an example of that. And I'm happy to report this morning that all of my boxes are unpacked and broken down. Now, the next step is finding a designated parking space. And what I come to recognize that everything that I have has a spiritual significance in my life. And sitting in that state of, okay, what has shifted? What is the memory that is connected with this? Is it time to release this memory, or is there another way to enhance this memory without actually having the physical object there? So that's what I'm staying with in terms of things have shifted. Last week, we explored the idea that God is not motivated if you aren't. Recognizing that the universe is fair and that life never lets us down, what happens is that we let our own selves down. We sow those seeds into the creative soil, and those seeds turn into our thoughts, which produce the results that outpicture in our life. Sometimes judgment and self-doubt and fear, or the opinions of others, that sow that seed that brings to us less than what we desire. And we remember that God does not act until we do. Ernest Holmes reminded us that the responsibility of setting the law in motion is ours. We should shift that back to the world, which we speak is the power of the universe, surging to express itself. In other words, until we set the law in motion with our thoughts and emotions, nothing is going to happen. And so today we set our hearts and minds to remember that the grateful and cheerful receiver is always activated within us. And I love this quote from Cicero that says, gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all other virtues. Gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others. And so to offer a little context or a little background for our theme this morning, the grateful and cheerful receiver. In many traditions that are based on the Bible, 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 6 through 9 are often identified as the cheerful giver. And I'll share those with you. They're short verses. And I'm reading from the New International Version. It says, remember this, whoever sows sparingly also reaps sparingly. And whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give. I think this is very important. I'll say this again. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to bless you abundantly so that all things at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. For it is written, they have freely scattered their gifts to the poor. Their righteousness endures forever. Ernest Holmes, as most of us know who have studied this philosophy, does come from a Christian and a Bible-based background. So quite a few of the passages in the Science of Mind textbook have a direct Bible reference. And so Ernest translates 2 Corinthians, if you will, in this way. And he says, the universe is impersonal. It gives alike to all. It is no respecter of persons. It values each alike. We cast a shadow across the pathway of our own experience. Emerson advises that we get our bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits. And this is in our Science of Mind textbook, page 42, page 41, paragraph 2. We also know this is the law of circulation. Giving and receiving is the reciprocal ebb and flow of the yin and yang. When we accept, when we open our hearts and our minds to accept, we're in the flow as God gives itself to each of us as it incarnates through and as each one of us. The spirit of this living presence, the spirit of the source, is deeply embedded in our nature, and we do know how to receive. It is one of the great and beautiful birthrights as living creatures that we sometimes, for any number of reasons, do not believe that we can receive the good and that there's only value in giving. There was a workshop that I used to participate in, and we did a segment on giving and receiving, and and some people were identified as takers. Some of us find ourselves in a place where it's more easy to give than it is to receive. Quite often I find myself there. It's easy for me to give. It's not as easy for me to receive. Although with practice, I am getting a lot better. You know, and I can now say, thank you, send some more. Thank you, send some more. And so I think it is up to each one of us to look at our own individual lives and see where it is that we may choose to make some adjustments. Whether we are greater at receiving than we are giving, then we may choose to shift and give a little bit more. Or if we are far better at giving than receiving, we may choose to shift a little bit more and open to receive the goodness that the universe is always giving to us. The reality is that we are in ever-flowing cycle of giving and receiving. It is the literal process of our breath. We take in the oxygen with the in-breath, and we breathe out carbon dioxide on the out-breath out into the world to be used by other living things that need to survive and thrive. Just think of that for a moment. Just the simple act of breathing in and breathing out allows us to participate in the circulation that allows something else, someone else, some other living being to survive and to thrive. We live in synchronicity with the world around us. 3 points I would like for us to consider this morning. The first one is a question. Are you ready to receive? When we position ourselves in the ebb and flow of the universe, that determines our readiness to receive. Where we position ourselves is what determines our readiness to receive. Are we positioned in a way that eclipses the sun from reaching us and from reaching other living beings? Do we have our back turned to the same warmth? A couple of days ago, I did a little venture out. It was a nice day, and I decided to have lunch outside. And I was able to get a seat with my back facing the sun. And I did that intentionally because the vitamin D absorption in the back is often described as the largest muscle in the body. And so sitting for about 20, 25 minutes with my back into the sun really felt good. So that was an intentional act of sitting with my back to the sun. But the question then becomes, as receivers, are we always sitting with our back to the sun, blocking out the gift of someone else? Or are we positioned in a stance of interconnectivity that allows the sunshine to wash over us and also reach every other living creature in the ecosystem? Where are we positioned? Are we positioned at that point of interconnectivity that allows the sun to wash over us? And as Ricky Byers wrote in the song, we let the love wash over us, we let it be, we let it be. And as the love, as the sun, as the gifts of the universe wash over us, we don't stand there with buckets to try and contain all of the goodness that is coming to us. We allow the overflow to spread its wealth, to spread its goodness to all of those around us. Emerson offers this related to positioning, and Ernest had mentioned this in an earlier quote. When we get our bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits, and this is from Emerson's essays, the first series, essay number 4, Spiritual Laws. And what he's referring to are those aspects of the ego that show up as our bloated nothingness suit. I like that, our bloated nothingness suit, and cause us to turn our back towards the warmth that is available to us. To correct this is easy. All we need to do is pivot ourselves to receive all of the bounty that the universe has to offer. Just imagine, this is a symbolic act. Take your hand and face it in one direction and then just turn it. That simple act of pivoting can shift the way that we respond to the good and the blessings that are always available to us. As we open our arms, ready to receive the bounty of the universe, this is the whole premise, I believe, of the 40-day prosperity plan that we are participating in. It invites us to take that inward journey to pivot our awareness of the all-providing presence in the universe, and we pivot ourselves in the direction of our good. Point number 2, we are worthy. We are worthy. We are worthy. In fact, I invite you to personalize that and say, I am worthy. I am worthy. I am worthy. How does it feel? How does it feel? We find ourselves in the place of sometimes. Sometimes I'm open to the goodness, I'm open to receive. Through the consistent practice of our spiritual practices, we realize that we live in a place of receptivity, giving and receiving daily, and it's wonderful. And by simply saying, I am worthy, creates a shift in our consciousness, a shift in our awareness that, yes, I am truly worthy, not sometimes, but I am worthy all the time. And I am worthy because I am an individualized expression of the source of all that there is. There is an interconnection that can never be interrupted. Do we believe we are irrefutably lovable and lovable and valuable? Do we feel that we are irrefutably lovable and valuable? Brene Brown offers this little piece of information. Through years of collecting data, Bernie says that about 15 to 20%, only 15 to 20% of the people live in a full-hearted way where they can easily both give and receive love. I ask myself, where am I on that continuum? Am I at the 20%? Am I above the 20%? And I invite you to just go within and ask your own self the question, where do I see myself on this continuum of being irrefutably lovable and valuable? And based on the data that Brene Brown examined, those people who deeply believe that they were worthy of love and belonging are essentially in the divine synchronistic flow of life. And so we are worthy. We are worthy when we recognize our worthiness, when we remember our worthiness, when we express our gratitude, it brings us into the divine synchronistic flow of life. Bernie's findings suggest that what causes the ability to really receive as well as to give is whether or not people believe they are lovable as a core truth. This is a core truth of our essence. We are created by love. We are created in love. We are created as love. And we express as the love of spirit. We are worthy to be receivers and givers of all of the good that is available to us in the universe. And point number 3 is another question. What are we willing to welcome? What are we willing to welcome? How do we get there? How do we get to that place of wholeheartedness? How do we align ourselves with the flow so that we give and receive with joy? Remember, the scripture says that the Lord loves a cheerful giver. And this is why in a lot of our traditions for the offering, we used to joke behind the scenes. We would always tell the musicians to play some really upbeat music for the offering, because that shakes the pocketbooks loose. Play something really upbeat. Play something that is cheerful, that is going to loosen up the flow. You'd be surprised at some of it, and especially ushers. I was an usher in my church growing up. Some of the things that we did behind the scenes, the doors of heaven would probably say, I don't know about you coming in here. Thank God for science of mind. I don't have to deal with that guilt. There are several paths available to us to welcome what the universe has to us. Some may be with a spiritual practitioner. Others may be in a therapist's office or a recovery group, or through our journaling practice, or perhaps a conversation with a loved one. Or maybe the shifts happens in the quiet and over time. One thing is certain though, and that is when we intentionally welcome into our lives, we can have a tremendous impact on how wide our heart's breadth can become and how available we can be to receive all of the goodness. The key here is when we intentionally welcome the gifts of the Spirit into our lives, knowing that they are given freely, they are given without attachment, they are given without requirements. Debbie Blue writes about how we frequently are taught in our societies that we should mostly welcome in the benchmarks of power and strength. That we are taught that power and strength are completely dissipate from vulnerability and tendencies. Fear can be a healthy emotion if it keeps us in balance. And this is what power and strength, I submit to you, this is what power and strength leads to. It leads to building up a fear that there's not enough. If I give, or if I allow someone else to give, then that means there's going to be less for me. So therefore I have to hoard everything that I can get. This is from a place of fear. Debbie Blue further writes, maybe we worship power. We try our hardest to project strength and invulnerability because we are afraid of something we don't need to be afraid of. We are afraid of something we don't need to be afraid of. Something we would do better to embrace, like the vulnerability at the core of our humanness. Perhaps being open is precisely what makes peace and love and cooperation possible. And here we are again with the terminology that is so part of our vocabulary: peace and love and cooperation. Peace, love, and cooperation. It is this openness to vulnerability that allows us to receive God. And so our call to action this morning, prior to our Facebook community joining us, Bobby brought forth a reading this morning entitled Listen. And I have asked Bobby if she would read it again for our Facebook community. It's just such a powerful reading. And so Bobby, if you would share that with us.
I'd be happy to. Listen. When I ask you to listen and you start giving advice, you have not done what I asked. When I ask you to listen and you begin to tell me why I shouldn't feel the way I do, you are trampling on my feelings. When I ask you to listen and you feel you have to do something to solve my problems, you have failed me, strange as that may seem. Listen. All I asked you to do was listen, not talk or do. Just hear me. I can do for myself. I'm not helpless, perhaps discouraged or faltering, but not helpless. When you do something for me that I need to do for myself, you contribute to my fear and weakness. But when you accept as a fact that I feel what I feel, no matter how irrational, then I can start trying to convince you and get on with understanding what's behind that irrational feeling. And when that's clear, the answers will be obvious, and I won't need any advice. Thank you for giving me the gift of listening.
Thank you, Bobby. This for me is an excellent example of giving and receiving. Receiving another's vulnerability and giving unconditional love. The gift of listening. Listening for understanding versus listening to respond. In a recent visioning session for our center, the word people revealed itself as something that was God's highest vision for the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living. And as I was reflecting on this, I thought about the preamble to the United States Constitution, which begins, "We the people of the United States." And so out of this, I created a preamble to our statement of belief that we begin our services with. And my statement of belief, my preamble to the statement of belief describes my vision for our spiritual community. And this is what I wrote. We, the people of the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living, declare our oneness with all people, acknowledging the oneness of all life. We embrace our individual vulnerability and the vulnerability of each other by joining together and affirming we are being grateful and cheerful givers and receivers. Together, we cultivate the tendencies and tune in to God's rhythm. This morning, we're offering to our local and to our non-local community an opportunity to be cheerful givers by supporting our annual Santa project for children. These are children who are in various situations where they may not have families to provide them with some Christmas cheer, with some gifts. And so there's an opportunity to participate financially in supporting this project. And during our offering, there will be a slide that will appear that will give you information about the project and the financial goal that we have established to fund it. And I am affirming right here and right now that through your generosity, we will not only meet, but we will exceed our goal, and we will bring joy into the lives of some children. And so in this place of joy, in this place of giving and receiving, I invite us to pray together. I invite you to join me, especially this morning, as we lift our voices for world peace, peaceful resolution to all discord of every nature. And I invoke this statement from our global vision. We envision a world in which we live and grow as one global family that respects and honors the interconnectedness of all life. A world where this kinship with all life prospers and connects through the guidance of spiritual wisdom and experience. And so in lifting the world, in lifting peace in the world, I know that the one life, the one power, and the one presence that I call God, and I know it is known by many other names and traveled to along many other different paths. And yet all paths lead to the one source of all that there is. How good it is to know that I am one with this source. It is the very expression of life itself, revealing itself through me and as me. And as I embrace and embody this truth for myself, I embrace it and embody it for each person that is a part of this community this morning, and those who will be watching the Facebook Live at different points during the week and during the months. And it is also the truth for every sentient being, every living thing. You know, it has been said, there's an expression that says, let everything that has breath praise the Lord. And so we know that all of creation is a living mechanism, breathing in and breathing out. This exchange of life, this exchange of love, this exchange of generosity, this exchange of vulnerability, this exchange of compassion, this exchange of love, this exchange of beauty, this exchange of joy, this exchange of peace, this exchange of everything that is occurring at all times. All of us are interconnected with one another. And it's through our interconnectedness that we live joyfully, that we prosper, that we share from our overflow, so that we really do contribute to and co-create a world that works for everyone. I bless places where individuals are gathering in the name and nature of the one being, whether it be mosques, synagogues, temples, churches, street corners, wherever they are gathering. Again, remembering all paths lead to the one source. And I lift my voice this morning in prayer for each prayer request that is held within the recesses of our hearts, knowing that As that prayer is released, whether in silence or verbally, into the law just says yes. It responds to whatever the request is. And so request from the law, request from spirit, request from God, request from source, request from whatever this energy is that you identify with in the very depths of your own heart. Make your request known unto the law, and the law only says yes. And so in this yes, I know and affirm and declare that each one is a giver and a receiver of God's goodness. And so for this and for so much more, I give thanks. Releasing this word into the law, which always says yes, I allow it to be. And if any of this resonates with you in any way, we affirm it together by saying, and so it is. Thank you and good morning. And it is now time for us to participate in the abundant flow of life. And we have an abundance statement. Our affirmation is, I recognize the presence of God within as the source of my abundance. Out of my abundance and consciousness flows everything I could desire in life. With gratitude and thanksgiving, I now participate in the flow of uninterrupted abundance. I release this visible substance as an outer symbol of my inner supply into the physical world. This prosperous experience is evidence of my abundance consciousness, and so it is. And we offer a variety of ways for you to participate in the flow of abundance. Of course, you may mail a check to our center. The address is on your screen. Visit our secure website and make your donation there, and you can also text to give. And for our Santa experience, these are the young people that we will be supporting. Their names and ages are here, and they each have a special request. We have ordered the gifts, and the goal for this project is $450. And if you choose to contribute to the goal, please donate through our website, and in the comments section, mark Santa Project. And so I say thank you and good morning to our Facebook Live audience, and we look forward to you joining us again next week. God is with you at all times.